depends into factors. First of all, the ability to survive as an immature individual until reaching sexual maturity. And in the second place, the ability to reproduce successfully. This means that there's always a trade-off between growth, survival, and reproduction. The female reproductive success can be affected by several factors. This includes, for example, age, parity, reproductive history, nutritional state, and social environment. Reproductive failure includes any disruption that can happen at any moment of the reproductive cycle of the female, and the result of it is a delay in the successful reproduction, and this can take two forms. It's going to be miscarriage or infant mortality. So today I will present the reproductive failure in a wild population of mandrills, and I'm also going to present an abnormal delivery that we saw in our population. Marie just talked about them, so I'm going to speak it. Yeah. So until very recently, most of the data regarding the reproduction in mandrills came from a semi-free group, semi-free ranging group at the city in Gabon. And then at the Persian mandrills, we are daily monitoring the female's reproductive state. And we are actually expecting a difference between our population and the population of the CIRM because this population is provisioned. The results I'm going to present today are part of a submitted paper of Charpentier and Ecologie, and we just added a year more of data because this last season we had closed it. So regarding the cycle of females, or the cycle of females, we gathered more than 150,000 reproductive states in 116 different females. In this graph, you can see the percentage of females that are cycling in green, of females that are pregnant in red, and females that are lactating in yellow. So as we can see, there is we also can find in our population the seasonality of reproduction that has been described in mandrills. Seasonality of reproduction is a strategy to environments, to changing environments that what it's doing is that it's maximizing the chances of offspring survival at the same time that it's minimizing the cost, the maternal cost for the future reproduction. Yes, so in Gabon, we found the climate is composed by two rainy seasons, a long one and a short one, and the same for the dry season. The food peak happens between the months of March and April, and the birth peak in our population happens around 2 months earlier than that. So we see a synchronization between the moment in which there's more food available and the first 2 months of reproduction. We wanted to check for the age at first reproduction in our population, and we found a mean of 5.15 years old and a median of 5.09 years old. We compare with the data in the scene, and it is half a year later of what they have found in this population. So we are highlighting actually the effects of provisioning on reproductive cycle with females. Then we wanted to check the individual parameters and the ecological parameters that were affecting miscarriage. And for that, as individual parameters, we analyzed the parity of the female, the age of the female, and the rank of the female. We didn't find any significance, but we did find significance on the ecological parameters. So for ecological parameters, so we analyze the season. So as you can see here, between the month, so this is the percentage of conception that end in miscarriage divided by month. And as you can see, most of them happen between October and November. We go back to this graph that I showed before. So as we can see, what this means is that females that are getting pregnant at the end of the reproductive season are more likely to suffer a miscarriage. Yeah, because actually, so in the submitted paper of the zoo, what they have proposed is the hypothesis that this could be a mechanism in order to avoid infanticide, because babies that are, so these pregnancies would end at the beginning of reproduction season, and it's the moment in which more males are coming to the group. But this is just an hypothesis that still needs to be checked. We did more or less the same for the infant mortality, but we, in this case, as an individual parameter, we also added the gender of the newborn. And in this case, seasonality was not affecting, but parity and gender gave significance in our test. Regarding parity, what we found is that newborns from primiparous females are more likely to die during the first 6 months of during the first 6 months. And regarding the gender, here we are quite surprised because we were not expecting this. We were actually expecting maybe the opposite. We found that newborn females are more likely to die than male newborns, but we don't have enough data, so we don't know yet how to explain that. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the second part. Now I'm going to describe actually an abnormal delivery that took place in our population. We were able to follow the female right before, during, and after birth, and we collected ad libitum data at the same time that we were video recording and taking pictures. Yeah, some images may be a bit sensitive. I hope it's fine. So she's the female that gave birth. She was 5 years old, more expected. We estimated her age at 5 years old. She was primiparous and she was low rank. So because of COVID, we don't have data on the previous reproductive season, but when we came back to the forest in October 2020, we found out that she was pregnant because she was presenting this swelling, which is typical in pregnant mandrills. Yeah, and it appears about 2 months after conception. 1 month before delivery, we also saw that she had been bleeding through her vulva several times, but the pregnancy status didn't change. So this abnormal delivery took place the 21st of January, and actually around 9 in the morning, we could see that something was going on with her because she was working on handbag, and she also had a secretion that was being expelled by her vulva. So we believe that this meant that she was about to have like the parturition was about to happen. Yes. We didn't find again. So we didn't saw her again until later in the afternoon, and in this moment, actually, it was like confirmation that she was going to have her baby because she was expelling, like she was having contractions actually, and also the liquid that was expelling this time was already reddish. So we believe that that was already blood. The postures that she assumed during the delivery was like stretching. She would arch her back and she was approaching and squatting. Working, this is an example of one of the contractions. So she would arch her back, and she would get the bipedal position in order to push, and she would use her arms to move. After 13 minutes of the first time that we saw contraction, the baby, we could see the head of the baby, but the rest of the body was not expelled at that moment. So then actually she combined periods of contractions, and she would be resting a bit. She never ate actually during the whole process. And also she was investigating a lot her genital areas by scratching, touching, and then licking her fingers. And yeah, so whenever at the same time, she had to follow actually the movement of the group. So she would also be working at the same time. Here is a video in which and see it actually the fetus is half out, but and she's trying actually to pull it, but she doesn't succeed. She's not succeeding, so she just keeps working. At some point, she also sat on the baby. Yes, we missed actually the expulsion of the baby, but when we found her again, the baby was lying dead next to her. This was 1 hour and 20 minutes after we witnessed a contraction, and this was 1 hour and 4 minutes after the crowning of the baby. So when we saw that the baby was next to her, we also realized that the placenta was still in, and she was not having any contractions in order to extend the placenta. She was licking a lot her baby, but she was not really trying to clasp it against her. And as you can see here, the umbilical cord showing that the placenta is still inside. Right after this video, she started walking without carrying a baby. So the corpse was dragged about by the umbilical cord. It got stuck to a root, and this made the placenta to get out. And it's at this moment, like around 5, that she grabbed the placenta. She started eating the placenta. At some point, she managed to cut the umbilical cord by chewing. She cut the umbilical cord. She took the placenta and she left the corpse behind. She climbed to a tree to keep eating the placenta. Is then when we approached the corpse in order to explore it. It was a baby female, and as you can see, there are some signs of abnormal development. We don't know yet, for example, if the deformation on the head is something that it was already before delivery or it's a consequence of the delivery process. So as I said, during the whole process, she had to keep up with the group. So this is a video of her level of tiredness. During the whole process, she was alone. There were no other females or individuals of the group around her. She was doing this small ground, but more about because of the pushing that it was not contact was. We saw her the next morning very fast, and unfortunately, that was the last day that we saw her. So we think that she died because of the effort of failure. So as far as we know, this is the first observation of a delivery in wild mandrills. The female was supposed to be around 5 months pregnant, which is the norm in mandrills. She was around 5 years old, which as we just saw, it's also very close to the average age at first reproduction in mandrills. But there are some characteristics that are actually showing us that this was an abnormal delivery, either a miscarriage or a stillbirth. First of all, the death of the neonate. Then she had been bleeding for a month before delivery. And then it also happened at daytime on the ground, and it was very long, so the female was actually exposed to predation. Mandrills are expected to deliver up in the trees and during the night. And I also would like to thank a lot to all the field assistants and students that are working at Mandrillos, and to Marie and to you for listening to me.